Well, but what is the purpose of allowing all those people into the country? It can't be. I wouldn't imagine that anyone in their society supports this.
Well, let me explain. This is a diabolical scam. What they do is they divert the Medicaid funds and turn it into a slush fund for the states that goes well beyond emergency medical care.
Joe Rogan starts the podcast the same way he always does, relaxed, casual, almost lazy. It feels like another episode where they'll joke about rockets, memes, and whatever wild thing popped up on the internet that week. But something feels different the moment Elon Musk speaks. There's no grin, no playful sarcasm, just a steady, serious tone that makes Joe lean forward without even realizing it. Elon looks him straight in the eye and says, "Joe, if people really understood how this system works, they'd lose their minds." Joe laughs instinctively, assuming Elon is about to rant about Twitter again, but Elon slowly shakes his head. "No," he says calmly. "Healthcare, immigration, power." Suddenly, the vibe changes. The room no longer feels like a podcast studio. It feels like a Senate hearing disguised by microphones and headphones.
Because you mentioned, for example, how much, say, Hillary and Obama have changed their tune from prior speeches where they were hard-nosed about not letting in anyone who's a criminal into the country, having secure borders, all that stuff. So why did they change?
Elon starts with the one point almost everyone agrees on. Emergency care. Hospitals should treat people when their lives are at risk. That part matters. That part is humane. But then Elon adds the part no one likes to talk about. When millions of people who are not citizens rely on that same system long-term, the costs don't disappear. They spread. They land on everyone else. Joe jumps in, trying to clarify. "So you're saying the system is bleeding money because it's overloaded?" Elon nods slowly. "Exactly. Costs go up, insurance premiums rise, middle-class families can't keep up, and then politics explodes." Elon pauses before adding, "This isn't cruelty, Joe, it's math." Joe goes quiet, leaning back, realizing this conversation isn't about feelings anymore. It's about a system designed in a way that creates dependence instead of sustainability.
And New York and California would be bankrupt without the massive fraudulent federal payments that go to those states to pay for illegals.
Their ability to balance budgets dependent upon illegals getting funding?
The scam level here is so staggering. California and New York and Illinois lie like crazy and say that these are all legitimate payments. Well, these days I think they're even admitting that they literally want hundreds of billions of dollars for illegals. But for a while they're trying to.
Joe Rogan does what he always does next. He pushes. "Okay, but how far does this really go?" he asks. "Does it reach banks, credit systems?" Elon smiles slightly like he was waiting for that exact question. "Of course it does," he says. "People can open accounts, access credit, take on debt." Then he slows down. "But the real question is who ends up paying for that debt." Joe raises an eyebrow. Elon continues. "That debt doesn't vanish. It gets absorbed, reshuffled, hidden inside massive financial systems until no one can trace it directly. Multiply that process by millions of people, and suddenly you've built a ghost economy, one that quietly distorts markets, policies, and elections." Joe lets out a low whistle. "So the shadow economy isn't just cash under the table," he says. "It's credit too." Elon nods. "Exactly."
They start off by saying it's not true. It's a right-wing conspiracy theorist.
Right.
Then it starts. Then it's like. I think the next step is, it might be true, and then it's like, okay, it is true,
but here's why.
And then the final step is, yeah, it's true, and here's why it's good. Wait a second, you started off saying it's untrue and it's a right-wing conspiracy theorist. Now you're saying it not only is it true, but it's a good thing, and we must do.
That's when Elon shifts gears completely. "That's why I created Doge," he says. "The Department of Government Efficiency." Joe bursts out laughing. "Doge, like the meme." Elon half smiles. "The name's a joke, the mission is." He explains how Doge uncovered billions in fraudulent payments, fake claims, unverified recipients, systems running on autopilot with no real oversight, money disappearing because no one was watching closely enough. Joe's eyes widen. "So you're saying fraud is baked into the system?" Elon leans forward, voice low. "Exactly. Shut that down, Joe, and you don't just stop waste. You collapse an entire ecosystem that survives by draining taxpayer money."
Now we're finding out this is part of the reason why this is government shutdown that's going on right now.
Yes, the entire basis for the government shutdown is that the Trump administration correctly does not want to send massive amounts of, like, hundreds of billions of dollars to fund illegal immigrants in the blue states, or in all the states really. If that is turned off, the illegals will leave. Democratic Party.
Joe leans back, rubbing his chin. Okay, so let me make sure I've got this straight, he says. States like California, New York, Illinois, they know this is happening. Elon doesn't hesitate. They absolutely know. He explains how payments are labeled as humanitarian aid or assistance. Then states turn around and ask the federal government for reimbursements. Here's the trick. Those reimbursements are tied to population numbers, not citizenship. Joe's face tightens. So the more people they count, the more money they get. Elon nods once. That's the formula. No emotion, just facts.
And by the way, it's a strategy that, if allowed to work, would work. And in fact has, which is that when we do the census in the United States, the way the census works for apportionment of congressional seats and electoral college votes for the president is by number of persons in a state, not number of citizens.
Right.
It's number of people. So you could literally be a tourist.
Joe looks genuinely shaken now. So that's what all these shutdown fights are really about, he says slowly. Who gets to keep the money flowing? Elon answers calmly, but there's an edge to his voice. Exactly, this isn't about morality. It's about power dressed up as compassion. He continues. A kid in middle America can't afford healthcare, but billions are spent keeping this pipeline open because it delivers funding and political leverage. Joe shakes his head. That's darker than any conspiracy theory, he mutters. It's like the system turned against itself. Elon smirks slightly. Not turned, Joe, optimized.
If you're a human with a pulse, then you count in the census for allocating congressional seats and presidential vote. Then they keep doing that strategy and cement a supermajority. That is what they're...
Who pauses, then lets out a nervous laugh. Man, 5 years ago people would have called this tinfoil hat nonsense. Elon nods. They did, they called it paranoia. He shrugs. Now they admit it, some even celebrate it. That's the wild part. It went from this never happens to it happens and it's good. Joe tilts his head. So the Overton window didn't shift, he says. It got launched. Elon chuckles. They didn't lose their moral compass. They rewired it to point exactly where they wanted.
They'll get more congressional seats. They'll get more presidential electoral college votes. That would get them the House, the majority in the House, and they would get to decide who is president. Literally based on illegals. These are not disputed facts by either party. I want to emphasize that's in Ken.
Yeah, this is not a conspiracy.
These are not disputed facts.
Elon grips the mic cable, leaning in like a professor delivering a final lesson. Joe, look at the law, he says. It doesn't count citizens, it counts residents. Joe jumps in. That's the census rule, right? Elon nods. Every warm body adds representation. More seats in Congress. More federal money. He pauses. It's the cleanest power play ever designed, hiding in plain sight. Joe gives an uneasy grin. That's insane. They're basically hacking democracy legally. Elon smiles faintly. They call it compassion so you feel guilty questioning it. But behind the curtain, it's spreadsheets and census forms.
This is just the way the law works. The way it should work is that only U.S. citizens should count in the census for purposes of determining voting power.
Because people that aren't legal can't vote.
California and New York have made it illegal to show your photo ID when voting. Thus, effectively, they've made it impossible to prove fraud. Impossible. They've essentially legalized fraudulent voting in California and New York.
So that would essentially turn the entire country into California.
Yes.
Where you have differing opinions, but it doesn't matter because one party is always in control.
Yes. And Democrats want to keep the money spigot going to incent illegal immigrants to come into the U.S. who will vote for them. That's the crux.
Now Joe wants confirmation. Be honest, Elon. Do both parties know about this? Elon answers instantly. Of course they do. He explains the laws are public, the incentives are obvious. Everyone pretends not to exploit them while quietly doing exactly that. Nobody wants to fix it, Elon adds, because everyone benefits until the next census resets the board. Joe exhales. So every 10 years it's a silent war. Elon smirks. They're not counting votes, Joe. They're counting bodies.
You have open borders. And you provide a ton of government handouts, which creates a massive financial incentive for people from other countries to come to your country, and you don't prosecute them for crime. They're going to be beholden to you, and they will vote for you. And that's why Obama and Hillary went from being against open borders to being in favor of open borders. That's the reason. Immigration enforcement has been overzealous because they're not going to be perfect.
Then Elon drops the final bomb. Even Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama once pushed for strong border control, he says. The same people arguing open access today warned about unsustainable migration back then. Joe looks stunned. So what changed? Elon answers instantly. The math. Once the population advantage flipped, so did the principles. That's not hypocrisy, Elon says. It's strategy. Joe leans forward. So the moral argument died the moment the numbers changed. Elon shrugs. Numbers don't have morals. Joe wraps up, still processing. If this isn't true, someone should be able to prove it wrong. Elon nods. Exactly. Show me where the logic fails. Laws, census rules, funding formulas, it's all public. Joe looks into the camera. Well, they can't call it a conspiracy anymore. Elon smiles softly. That rule book, Joe, is the real scandal. It's not broken. It's working exactly as designed.